Every week right now, a London homeowner lists their property at last year's price, sits through 6 weeks of silence, then quietly accepts an offer tens of thousands below what they thought they had. It is happening in South London. It is happening in East London. It is happening in inner boroughs that have been considered untouchable for years. The headlines tell you London is recovering. The actual transaction data, sourced directly from the ONS and updated as of July 22, 2026, tells you something very different. London prices have now fallen for 9 consecutive months on an annual basis. The average London home costs £545,000, down 3.7% from a year ago, at a time when UK prices nationally rose 2.7%. The capital is moving in the opposite direction to the rest of the country. Here are the 10 areas where the numbers are moving furthest and fastest in the wrong direction. 10. Newham. The regeneration story hits a wall. Average property price, £405,000. Annual change, down 1.4% from £411,000 in May 2025. Flat prices specifically, down 3.2%. Source, ONS UK House Price Index, May 2026, provisional. There is a particular kind of pain that comes with buying into a story. For more than a decade, Newham was one of London's most compelling narratives. The Olympic Borough. Stratford, Westfield, Crossrail, billions of pounds of infrastructure investment arriving in a concentrated burst. Buyers who got in early were rewarded. Buyers who arrived later, on the back of that original momentum, paid prices that baked in the promise of continued transformation. The problem with regeneration is that it has an endpoint. The transport links that were coming eventually arrived. The stadium was built. The retail destination was completed. And once a neighborhood story moves from what it is going to become to what it actually is today, the calculation buyers make changes entirely. The overall borough average conceals a more uncomfortable picture in the dominant property type. Flats in Newham fell 3.2% in the year to May 2026, with the average flat now at £338,000. First-time buyers paid £389,000 on average, down 1.6% from a year earlier. The rental market is holding up better, with rents rising 4.2% annually to £1,928 per month. But buyers in the current sales market are not willing to pay a premium for a story that is already fully unfolded, and the flat price data shows it in the numbers that matter most. 9. Wandsworth. A family borough repricing in real time. Average property price, £660,000. Annual change, down 6.1% from £702,000 in May 2025. Flat prices specifically, down 6.9%. Source, ONS UK House Price Index, May 2026, provisional. Wandsworth spent years as the default answer when London families looked at the south of the river. Clapham Common within reach, strong school provision, the kind of residential character that made buyers feel they were getting something genuinely solid for their money. That reputation has not disappeared, but it is being tested by numbers that cannot be explained away. Flats in Wandsworth fell by 6.9% in the year to May 2026, the sharpest falls across any property type in the borough, with the average flat now at £509,000. The first-time buyer average is £558,000, itself 6.3% lower than 12 months earlier. Home movers paid £833,000 on average, down from £881,000 a year ago. Even buyers purchasing with a mortgage saw prices drop 6% year-on-year, to £662,000. What this tells you is that the adjustment in Wandsworth is not cosmetic, and it is not confined to one corner of the market. It is being felt across every entry point, from the flat buyer trying to get onto the ladder all the way up to the family mover paying well over £750,000. TwentyCi's Q1 2026 analysis confirms that inner London demand is down 12.5% year-on-year, and Wandsworth sits directly in the path of that contraction. The rents are still rising, up 3.7% to £2,611 per month. The capital values are not. 8. Camden. Central London loses its premium. Average property price, £806,000. Annual change, down 6.2% from £859,000 in May 2025. Flat prices specifically, down 6.7%. Source, ONS UK House Price Index, May 2026, provisional. Camden holds the third highest average house price of any London borough as of May 2026. That status has historically provided a degree of insulation. The name alone has carried weight in the market for decades, and buyers have reliably been willing to pay for proximity to the center, the cultural identity, and the sense of being in the middle of the city's energy rather than adjacent to it. What is shifting now is the buyer's calculation. Flat prices in Camden dropped 6.7% in the year to May 2026, with the average flat at £667,000. First-time buyers paid £707,000 on average, down 6.3% from £754,000 a year earlier. Home movers paid £1,005,000, down from £1,062,000. Rents in Camden are essentially flat year-on-year at £2,791 per month, a 0.5% change, at a time when London rents overall rose 2.2%. When the rental income is stagnating at the same time as capital values are declining by over 6%, landlords who bought in Camden in recent years are facing pressure from two directions simultaneously. A correctly priced home in London currently sells in an average of 36 days. Overpriced properties are sitting for 127 days or more. Camden currently has more of the latter category than its reputation would lead sellers to expect. 7. Islington. The spreadsheet no longer justifies the postcode. Average property price, £670,000. Annual change, down 6.4% from £716,000 in May 2025. Flat prices specifically, down 7%. Source, ONS UK House Price Index, May 2026, provisional. Islington has been the borough where professionals move when they make it. Angel, Upper Street, the kind of address that people have competed for aggressively because it felt like both a lifestyle decision and a sound financial one. For a long time, it was both. Flats in Islington fell 7% in the year to May 2026, the steepest of any property type in the borough, with the average flat now at £557,000. The first-time buyer average dropped 6.5%, from £634,000 to £592,000 in the same period. What makes the Islington situation particularly revealing is the divergence between the sales market and the rental market. Average rents in Islington rose 5.4% in the year to June 2026, to £2,843 per month, significantly above the London average of £2,302 and representing one of the stronger rental growth rates of any inner London borough. That divergence suggests genuine ongoing demand from people who want to live in the borough but cannot justify buying at current prices relative to what the same money purchases elsewhere. The result is a market where landlords considering selling are weighing strong rental income against capital values that have fallen more than 6%, and where buyers who can absorb the purchase price are increasingly scrutinizing whether the postcode premium is still justified by fundamentals alone. 6. Hammersmith and Fulham. The resilient borough isn't. Average property price, £729,000. Annual change, down 10.9% from £818,000 in May 2025. Flat prices specifically, down 11.6%. Source, ONS UK House Price Index, May 2026, provisional. Hammersmith and Fulham holds the fifth highest average house price in London as of May 2026. It has consistently been described as resilient, a word estate agents have applied to it for years to mean that whatever the wider market was doing, demand here seemed to hold. River views along the Thames, excellent school provision, transport links into both the city and the West End, and a buyer profile of considered, well-researched professionals who made decisions carefully. Flat prices in Hammersmith and Fulham fell 11.6% in the 12 months to May 2026, the sharpest fall of any property type in the borough, and well above the London flat average. The average flat is now £565,000. First-time buyers paid £625,000, down 11.1% from £703,000 a year earlier, a fall of £78,000 in 12 months. Home movers paid £895,000, down from £996,000. Even mortgage buyers saw prices fall 10.8%, from £819,000 to £730,000. Rents in the borough are essentially flat at £2,778 per month, up just 0.7% in a year when London rents broadly rose 2.2%. In Hammersmith and Fulham, which is heavily weighted toward high-value flats along its riverside and central streets, The combination of double-digit price falls and stagnant rental growth represents a significant stress test for anyone who bought in the last 3 years. The resilience has not held. 5. Tower Hamlets. Canary Wharf's shadow grows longer. Average property price, £444,000. Annual change, down 14.5% from £520,000 in May 2025. Flat prices specifically, down 14.8%. Source, ONS UK House Price Index, May 2026, provisional. Tower Hamlets represents the largest proportional fall of any mid-range London borough in the ONS dataset for the year to May 2026. £76,000 removed from the average property value in 12 months. First-time buyers in May 2026 paid an average of £425,000, compared with £498,000 a year earlier, a fall of 14.7%. Home movers paid £528,000, down from £619,000. Flat prices, which dominate the new build stock across Canary Wharf and the surrounding Docklands developments, fell 14.8% in the year, the steepest flat price fall of any borough in London. Even as rents rose 2.7% to £2,429 per month, the sales market is falling far faster than yields can compensate for. The dynamic at work in Tower Hamlets is a concentrated version of a problem visible across East London more broadly. Over the last 15 years, developers built aggressively into a rising market, adding thousands of new units on the expectation that professional demand would absorb the supply. Much of that supply was absorbed, but at prices that made sense in a lower-rate, higher-confidence environment. Buyers today are recalculating what a flat with a Canary Wharf view is worth at prevailing mortgage rates, and many are concluding that the answer is substantially less than the seller's valuation implies. Tower Hamlets also carries the highest number of tall private sector residential buildings requiring building safety remediation of any local authority in England, adding an unresolved structural pressure on top of the price trajectory that the ONS data already makes uncomfortable enough. 4. Kensington and Chelsea, when the international floor drops away. Average property price, £1,256,000. Annual change, down 10.7% from £1,406,000 in May 2025. Flat prices specifically, down 11%. Source, ONS UK House Price Index, May 2026, provisional. Kensington and Chelsea holds the highest average house price of any local authority in England as of May 2026. That position has historically been underpinned not by domestic demand. London salaries, however high, have never been sufficient to sustain a £1.25 million average price, but by consistent international buyer appetite. Buyers from across the Middle East, Asia, and beyond treated prime London property as a reliable, politically stable store of value. They paid cash, moved quickly, and provided a structural floor under prices that domestic buyers alone could never have maintained. Flat prices in Kensington and Chelsea fell 11% in the 12 months to May 2026, with the average flat now at £1 million. First-time buyers paid £1,077,000 on average, down 10.5% from £1,203,000 a year earlier. Home movers paid £1,489,000, down from £1,657,000. Rents have essentially stalled, rising just 0.5% to £3,596 per month, at a time when London rents overall grew 2.2%. The international buyers who sustained these prices have become more cautious following the 2025 non-domicile tax changes, the stamp duty surcharge on overseas purchasers, and the geopolitical uncertainty introduced by the Middle East conflict from February 2026. Knight Frank's Q2 2026 forecast is explicit. Prime central London prices are expected to fall a further 2% in 2026, a revision down from their earlier expectation of flat prices. The buyers still in this market are largely domestic, and they cannot afford what international demand was previously prepared to pay. 3. Westminster. A 22% fall in one of Britain's most prestigious postcodes. Average property price, £836,000. Annual change, down 22.8% from £1,084,000 in May 2025. Source, ONS UK House Price Index, May 2026, provisional. The numbers for Westminster require a moment's pause, because they are exceptional by any measure. An average property price that has fallen from £1,084,000 to £836,000 in 12 months is not a gentle correction. That is a fall of £248,000, a sum of money larger than the total value of the average property in most of England, removed from the average Westminster property in a single year. Flat prices in Westminster fell 23.1% in the year to May 2026. First-time buyer prices fell 22.6%, from £972,000 to £753,000. Mortgage buyer prices fell 22.5%, from £1,060,000 to £821,000. Rents in Westminster are also contracting, down 2.5% to £3,168 per month, making it one of only a handful of London boroughs where average rents are actually falling while the rest of London is rising. Westminster carries the same international buyer dependency as Kensington and Chelsea, but concentrated in a market where new-build luxury apartments and high-end conversions have represented a significant share of recent transaction activity. When that international demand withdraws simultaneously with the non-dom tax changes and the geopolitical uncertainty that arrived in early 2026, the domestic buyer cannot bridge the gap at the levels the market had previously established. The price must fall until it reaches what a domestic buyer can actually borrow, and in Westminster, that process is still visibly underway. The combination of falling purchase prices, falling rents, and continued geopolitical headwinds creates the most difficult environment for any Westminster buyer who purchased in the peak years of 2021 and 2022. A £248,000 average loss in 12 months is not a headline. It is a balance sheet. 2. City of London, when the investment case evaporates. Annual change, approximately minus 14.4%. Source: Housemetric analysis of ONS-derived land registry data, July 2026. Note: the ONS does not publish a dedicated borough page for the City of London, as the resident population sample is too small. Housemetric's analysis of derived land registry data is the most granular publicly available source for the square mile. The City of London has always operated as a market apart. The residential properties within the square mile, riverside developments overlooking the Thames, luxury conversions in historic commercial buildings, apartments marketed to international buyers and city workers with high incomes and specific lifestyle requirements, have been priced primarily by the profile of buyer who wants to live there rather than by what the London-wide market will bear. Those buyers have historically been international, cash-rich, and motivated by a combination of status, investment positioning, and the unique appeal of holding a residential address in the financial heart of one of the world's most recognized cities. The Housemetric analysis of land registry data shows a fall of approximately 14.4% in the year to July 2026, representing one of the steepest price trajectories of any part of Inner London once the inherent small sample volatility is accounted for. The City of London shares a buyer profile and international demand dependency with Westminster and Kensington and Chelsea, and it has tracked a comparably sharp downward path as that buyer profile has retreated. When the buyers whose confidence sustained those prices pull back simultaneously, there is nothing in the domestic market to replace them at equivalent price levels. The square mile's residential market is small, opaque, and slow-moving even in normal conditions. In 2026, it is slower still. 1. Westminster. The data confirms it as the hardest-falling major London borough of 2026. Westminster returns to close this list because the verified ONS data leaves no ambiguity. A 22.8% annual fall, confirmed by the ONS from May 2025 to May 2026, makes Westminster the single hardest falling borough of any significant residential size in London right now. To state it plainly, the average Westminster property is worth £248,000 less today than it was 12 months ago. That fall has happened without any dramatic public announcement, without a single news bulletin leading with it, and without the kind of visible disruption that might prompt buyers to update their expectations accordingly. What makes Westminster's position the most instructive entry on this entire list is the lesson it carries for every other borough. Westminster is arguably the most recognizable property address in England. Parliament, Buckingham Palace, Victoria, Mayfair on its western edge. There is no more established postcode in the country, and none of that has been sufficient to insulate it from the structural forces reshaping London property values in 2026. The international buyer withdrawal, the non-domicile tax changes, the recalibration of what ultra-prime London property is worth when assessed by domestic rather than overseas buyers, and the broader London market correction that the data has now shown for 9 consecutive months, all are visible in Westminster's numbers more clearly than anywhere else. The takeaway from this list is not that London property is permanently broken. Knight Frank's Q2 2026 forecast projects UK house price growth of 3% in 2027 and 4% in 2028, with longer-term growth of more than 5% annually in 2030 as political and economic conditions potentially shift. Savills Revised Five-Year Forecast expects recovery to begin slowly in 2027 before strengthening over the remainder of the decade. But that coming recovery, if it arrives on those timescales, will be a recovery from prices that have already fallen significantly in the boroughs covered here. Anyone using valuations from 12 or 18 months ago to make decisions in the current London market is working from a map that no longer matches the terrain.